Hey friends, you are crafting with Kim Byers, and today we are going to create a beautiful fall pillow with sublimation, except we're not going to use a sublimation printer. So have you ever wondered how you could sublimate or try out this new thing that everybody's doing, but without having to make that big investment into a sublimation printer? I'm going to show you how to do it today. So we're going to hop over to the craft table. I'll show you all about it. And if you haven't already, I would love for you to hit that subscribe button and join me for all my future videos. I have so much coming for this fall. And as always, I love hearing from you guys. So make sure you hop down in the comments and talk to me. All right, let's get going. Okay, so here we are on the craft table. Now these are the things that we are either going to work with today or that we are going to talk about today. So just to run through everything, so I have a ton of sublimation blanks, everything from pillowcase covers to t-shirts, tote bags, koozies, tumblers, and then this is the pillowcase cover we're going to be using today. And then I also have a blue mat, I have a lint roller, heat tape, a ruler, and then I have this. This is Infusible Ink, which is basically Cricut's version of sublimation. Okay, so if you have not been introduced to these yet, these are amazing. The long and short of it is these items have sublimation ink in them, no printer required. Okay, so let's quickly talk about what sublimation is. So sublimation is basically when you take a design and you print it out on a special printer on special paper with special ink, and then you use that to press that design onto a substrate. So onto a t-shirt or onto a tote bag or onto a pillowcase, which is what we're going to be doing today. So what we are doing with these pens is this is sublimation ink inside of a pen. So you're able to use that via hand. You can draw, like I'm candidly not good enough at drawing freehand. I mean, give me a computer and I'm all over it. But when it comes to just freehand drawing, I'm just not that great at it, or I'm not confident enough in it, maybe is the way to say. So what we are going to do is we are going to use the Cricut to do all the drawings. So there's thousands of images in Cricut Design Space, just thousands of beautiful things. So we are actually going to take several of them and make a design for our throw pillow, and we're going to use tons of colors, and I'm going to show you all the ins and outs of that. There are two important things missing from this table. There is a Cricut machine that we're going to use today, which could be any Cricut machine. It could be a Joy, it could be an Explorer, it could be a Maker, in any of the versions of that. And there's also a heat source missing. And today I'm going to be using the Easy Press 2. So let's hop over to Cricut Design Space and let me show you what we're doing. Let me show you all about it, and then we will make this gorgeous pillow. Okay, so here we are in Cricut Design Space, and I've gone ahead and pulled in tons of images that we could work with. So I pulled in images that are drawn, I pulled in images that are cut, and now you can go into images right over here in your left-hand navigation and choose all the things that you think you might want to be in Infusible Ink on your pillow. So I'm going to show you how to find those images. I'm also going to show you how to convert an image that is cut to a drawn images so that you could use that with your pens. I'm also going to show you how to turn off layers. So first and foremost, how do we find images? So if you go over into images here, you can go up and search, for something, for instance, like pumpkins. So let's type in pumpkins. And so now there's all these different images. Don't stop there. Go over into operation type over on your left, and if you only want drawn images, so you only want to use your Infusible Ink pens, then you're going to go over here and do draw only. So now that's going to pull down all of your choices to an image that is already drawn. And we look over into our operations and we can say cut and draw. So that's going to open it up to where we have more options. Okay, so when you pull those in, you can do one of two things. So for instance, let's grab this pumpkin. He's a little bit cuter. We'll grab this one. Actually, I know I like this one better. And I ended up pulling them all in. Silly me. So we take this pumpkin, we look over into right-hand navigation. You can see that one is a pen, right? See this one here? And then you have a basic cut. You can do one of two things. You can turn that cut off completely so it doesn't exist, or you can go up Just make sure you're only clicked on one thing in your layers. You can go up to Operation and see it has Basic Cut, and you can turn that to a pen. So if you want to outline your image in pen, and you could do it in 2 different colors, how fun would that be, right? So we can do that. And so then once you have the images that you want to work with, I'm going to delete that pumpkin real quick. Then what you can do is step number 2, get a template. So let's go over into shapes and just choose a shape that works for whatever you're about to put this design onto. So for instance, this is a pillow. So I'm just going to choose a square, and then I'm going to resize it to the size of my pillow. It's like 17.5 inches. So I'm going to delete this square because I already have one. So see, here's my square, and I made it 17.5 by 17.5. Now I'm not going to cut this out. This is just so that I can get an idea of how large I want my images to be on my pillow. I love using templates. Okay, so I also turned it to the color of my pillow, which is kind of like an off-white color. And so now what I've done is I'm like, okay, I have all of these images. So step 3, I kind of start to arrange. So I'm picking things. So I did find this hello, and I wanted to use this sweater weather. This is actually something that I designed as part of a Cricut cartridge that I did a couple of years ago. It's available in Cricut Design Space in Access if you're an Access member. Okay, and so what I did with the hello image, I just turned off that background and just used the outline of the word hello. Now what I am thinking I'm going to do, and you guys can kind of envision this, is I'm going to use the pens to draw everything out, and then I'm going to hand color in some of these. I may even do some pattern on some. That would be a ton of fun. The cool thing about pens is you're going to be able to get as creative on it as you want. Now, so I wanted to show you guys how you could take this sweater weather, and you can look over into layers and you see how these are all cuts. And so it's the same as we did before. You just want to click on one individual item, you go up into Operation, and you turn that to pen. Okay, and so it's going to come in as a color. They're all going to come in as fine point black. I'm going to use markers. So we go down to the 1mm markers, and then when you scroll down, you're going to be able to see all of these different colors, and they say Infusible Ink beside them. There's multiple reds and multiple yellows and multiple greens. It's just, there's so many options. And so I've gone ahead in and, you know, tweaked all of these to be the colors that I want them to be. It is literally that simple. The other thing is when we send these to the mat, we want them to be bundled as much as possible, right? We don't want, you know, the pen to just draw this leaf and then that leaf. We want them to be together. So if we click on mine, I've already gone ahead and grouped them. Actually, I take that back, not group. Wrong terminology. Group means that I have grouped them together visually so that you can see them and move them around on the canvas. That does not go over to the mat. So if you want them to be attached, the right word there is attached, then you want to click on the items that you want, holding the Shift key or over in your panel, and then you're going to attach them. So you can see here that these elements are already attached. And then if I click off onto hello, and those two are attached. And you're probably wondering, Kim, why did you not just attach everything in a line? That would be so much easier. Well, no, unfortunately I can't. So if I selected everything in this group, because I tried to put those on one sheet of paper, it's larger than my paper. Remember, I'm using copy paper. So it's a 11 by 8.5, or 8.5 by 11. And so what I did is I did some of my lettering and some of my elements together so that it would be a whole lot easier to sort of piece them together before I press them. So I have 1, 2, 3, and then I did have to put my little leaves by themselves and one pumpkin by itself just because it just was not going to fit any other way. But it's not going to be difficult, guys. This is going to be great, and I'm going to show you how to pull it all together when we get back over to the craft table. Okay, so next thing that we need to do, we are going to go and turn off all of these elements that we are not cutting and get everything ready for the mat. Now that I've turned off all of the images that we're not going to use, I'm looking over into my layers panel, and so this background square you can see here. Now I just wanted to point out this little caution cone is telling me that it's too large for my mat, which of course we're not printing it or cutting it anyway, so that's okay. But make sure that you turn that off. And so the next thing that we want to do is go ahead and send this to the mat. Okay, so the great thing is it's going to combine our mats. I say the great thing. We need to make sure that all of these items are within 8.5 by 11. Now you can go over into your material size over here on the left hand navigation, and you can go 8.5 by 11 to just help your machine know, and so it doesn't try to write off onto your mat. I personally suggest that you do that. So here on our first one, we can see we have weather and that little pumpkin, and then we have those two leaves together. We look at our next one and we see the sweater and the multiple leaves above that. And then finally we have hello and a pumpkin. I am actually going to just shift this guy down some because I want to be able to cut in between him, since that's not truly his placement. Let me look at these other ones real quick. That one's fine. And this one, I'm just going to shift him slightly as well. Okay, so now that we have them the way that we want them on the sheet of paper, remember when you are doing heat anything, so if you were doing any type of iron-on, or you were doing any type of sublimation, or you were doing any kind of infusible ink, which is, by the way, what? Sublimation, then we have to mirror image these designs. So we want to go over and make sure that we mirror image every one of these sheets. And so the next thing we can do is select continue. It finds our machine, and today I'm going to be using the Explorer 3. Okay, so now we want to set our base material. This is important. You are going to be using printer paper, okay? So most likely you don't have that in your favorites list. So go into Browse All Materials, and then we're just going to type in paper. And so then we can look here. Oh, it says copy paper, which is totally fine. Okay, so I am going to be using, let's just say 20-pound copy paper, because we're not cutting anything. And candidly, I don't know if mine is 20-pound or 24-pound. I threw away the little bag that it came in. So we're just going to go with the lightest one. Okay, and so then we'll hit done. And now what it's going to do for us is it's going to tell us what color pen is up next. So you see, when we first start this, it's going to tell us to load the red for that first sheet. And then it's going to tell us to wild aster, the tawny, the orange peel. So as long as you continue to look back at your computer as you go, or your iPad or your phone or whatever you're using, it's going to tell you which pen to put in next, so you won't mess that up. Okay, so let's go ahead and hop back over to the craft table, and we will get all of this going. Here we are back on the craft table, and I have moved out everything that we're not going to be working with today, except I just wanted to point out something to you. If you want to do infusible ink sheets, so if you want to cut out some of the wording with infusible ink and then you want to use the pens as well, you can do that. You just need to press it all at one time. I do not want you to try to press iron-on. So if you wanted to use like a patterned iron-on or something like that, I don't want you to press that all at one time. So if you create a design, and so for instance, maybe the pumpkin or something is off to the bottom, and you can go back in and press just that area and not repress your infusible ink, and just only press that one little element, you can do that. But the heat is going to be different for infusible ink than it is the iron-on. So I just wanted to point that out to you guys. You can use the infusible ink sheets and the pens at the same time, but if you're going to, put in another element into that, which I think would be beautiful, just make sure that you can press it separately. You do not want to press over this infusible ink twice. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take our copy paper and get that onto the mat. So putting paper onto the mat is super, super simple. Just always remember, guys, to put it in that upper right corner first, because it is so tacky, especially if it's clean. And then I like to use a brayer just to make sure that I don't have any bubbles or anything like that. And so now we're ready to go ahead and place that into our machine. Okay, so now we're ready to load our mat and to put in our very first pen. So we're going to be using red first. It's going to check our mat. Okay, and so now we're going to place this in the A clamp. Now, if you are using a Cricut Joy, you only have one clamp. So you're going to remove your blade and put in your pen. So now we're ready to go. Now, one thing I want to remind you guys, when you are doing sublimation, again, the same thing that infusible ink is, sublimation color comes out with heat. So you might look at this and you're like, that doesn't really look red. It will. It will look red once it comes out with the heat. Okay, we'll just keep going with this process until all 3 sheets are done. Now that I have unloaded the last sheet, I wanted to show you that there's a technique to taking this paper off of your blue mat. So you always want to bend the mat and not the paper. The mat can take it, but you don't want creases and curls on your paper. So you're just going to turn that mat over, and I'm using my glass mat just so it doesn't stick to the table or anything like that. And so you want to put your hand on the paper and just peel your mat backwards. Okay, the other thing that you're probably noticing now that we've turned that over is it says A-Sub on the back. So halfway through this project while I was doing it, I decided that I wanted to try a version on the sublimation paper. So whether you buy copy paper or you buy sublimation paper, they're not, I mean, sublimation paper is not that expensive. And so it's really not that much of a difference in the investment, although you have invested a ton of time and you bought the machine and all the things. And I just feel that the ink is penetrating this paper better, just my opinion. And actually I'm thinking at the end of this video we're going to do a little test. I'm going to do 2 small pumpkins or 2 small leaves on the same substrate, so we'll do them side by side, same color, and we'll use the 2 different papers and see which one turns out the best. But just for a quick example, I want to show you, this is A-Sub paper or sublimation paper. And so these 3 are on sublimation paper. And then this is on the copy paper. And so I did the same process with these as I did with the sublimation paper. It's just this paper is so thin. Candidly, this is not that much thicker, just barely thicker, but it is a coated paper. And so this is curling and all that kind of thing. And it would probably still press just fine. And actually, I'm thinking I'm going to use one of these on our little test. But I personally felt like I put so much time and effort into creating this. I wanted it to be its personal, you know, its best as it could. It's personal best. And so this is sublimation paper. You can get this off of Amazon. I'll link all of this stuff up down below so you guys have easy access to it. But there are multiple kinds of sublimation paper. I find that this one does a great job. Okay, so now that we have our prints, let's go ahead and let me show you how we can put them together so we're pressing at one time. Okay, for our next step, we want to cut things out. So remember when we were in Cricut Design Space and we actually attached some of these elements so that they wouldn't shift or they would make it easier for us to line things up. So now what we want to do is we want to take a pair of scissors and cut away the things that aren't in the right place. So for instance, hello and these 2 leaves go together, but this large pumpkin does not. It goes in a different spot. So we want to cut it away. And then the same here. So with the weather and this pumpkin is in the correct spot, but these 2 leaves are not. So we're just going to trim around everything. And the reason that we rip some things instead of cutting some things, and we're going to have to get closer to these, especially because these are all going to come together, and we'll do that as we start placing things. But because when you rip things like this, it's not going to leave a crease or a specific cut. So if you use the scissors, you want to kind of move around. You don't want sharp, straight edges like this because you don't want a pressing line. Okay, now that I have everything cut out or torn out, and I know you can't see it as well because it's upside down, but I have lined everything up as it was in the design that we created. So the other reason I love my glass mat is because I'm able to use the grids to really make sure everything is straight and everything is where it should be. And now I'm going to take my heat tape, not regular tape, guys, don't ever use regular tape with this kind of stuff. I'm going to use heat tape and I'm going to attach these to one another and then gently flip it over. Okay, so now what I want to do is I'm going to take my pens, I'm going to fill some things in, do some pattern work on this, just have fun with it. And then we are going to place it on to our pillowcase. I'll show you how to do that. We're going to put more heat tape on it to hold everything in place, and then we're going to press this thing. So in the original design, this was a winter image, this sweater weather. And so this little scarf right here on the A was multiple colors of blue, which can be difficult to do if you don't have multiple colors of blue like an iron-on or something. But with these pens, it's actually very easy. So these kits come with versions of oranges, reds, blues, purples, whatever it is that you're working with. And so what I'm going to do is start out by making this scarf multiple color, and then when you fill in your lettering and things, you could, fill it in with the exact color that you outlined it, or if you wanted to, you could put a pattern inside of it in a different color, or you could always use a lighter color on the inside than what the outline is. And so I think all of those would be beautiful. Just have fun with it. Okay, so I finally finished coloring everything. I had a ton of fun with this. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to place this onto the pillowcase and press. The next step in our process is going to be to lint roll our pillowcase. So you just want to make sure that you get all of the lint off of your case. And this one's got, seems to be some extra lint right there. And the reason that we want to do that is because the ink on your sublimation or on your Infusible Ink print is going to stick to any lint that might be on this. And if that happens, then when it washes or you brush away the lint, there goes the ink as well. So please do not skip this process. So any kind of sublimation, you want to clean your surface. So that means if you're doing a tumbler, you're going to want to use alcohol on that. If you're using fabric, you want a lint roller. So like, look at that. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but there's a ton of lint on this thing. Okay, so now once this is done, I have inserted some copy paper inside of my pillowcase, and the reason I did this is because this is a reversible pillowcase, and on the other side I have another design. Now even if I didn't have a design, I want to protect the back of this. I don't want any bleed through, and so I have placed copy paper or cardstock inside of my pillowcase. Okay, so I would strongly suggest doing that, or putting butcher paper or parchment paper inside of it as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move my glass mat out of the way, and we will tape down with heat tape our design. Okay, so I've gotten out my pressing mat, and I have my heat source, my Easy Press 2, heating up off to the side. The next thing that I want to do is I want to just lightly press it and warm it up a little bit, and get out any, this little wrinkle here in the middle that's kind of bothering me. And then we'll put our design down and get it all situated. Now, one little quick tip, guys. So when you're using heat and you press out this little spot like I just did, you need to now allow this to cool before you place your sublimation or your infusible ink onto this, because you don't want it to start to transfer and then you shift it and move it and place your heat tape on it and it messes up your surface. So make sure that you've allowed this to totally cool from getting that wrinkle out. Okay, so now our surface has completely cooled, and it's time to go ahead and place our design on it. So I am just going to gently flip it over. Now, one thing I do want to point out, this is just a little tip. If you put lotions and things on your hands, make sure that you do not have that on your hand when you're touching the sublimation ink. You can actually get the oil onto the paper, and it could end up showing up on your design, and you just don't want that to happen. So what we're going to do is we are going to get this centered top and bottom and from side to side, and then we are going to tape it down with heat tape. So I've measured about 2 inches or 2.5 inches from the top to the first element, and about 2.5 inches from the bottom, and about 2 inches on either side. So I think we are ready to go ahead and put our design down with heat tape. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you are using true heat tape. Do not ever use any other kind of tape on this. It's not going to leave any kind of a residue if you use the correct kind of tape. So just go ahead and put as much tape as you think necessary to keep it in place. You don't want any kind of shifting. And then once you have it all taped down, we will use our press. Okay, so I think we're ready, and this is a very large design. So what I'm going to tell you guys is if you can press your design all at one time, do that. If you can't, press it in quarters or in pieces as much as possible so that you don't have to do a lot of overlapping. You do not want to have to overlap heat and cause what they call ghosting. So basically where it kind of looks like it, you know, shimmers, or there's like a little bit of line of ink that looks like it shifted or moved. And so because this is so big, I put a ton of tape on this thing. So what I would strongly suggest is that the larger it is, the more tape maybe, and then using it in, or using your heat press in pieces. So we're gonna try to press the entire top, and then we're gonna shift it up and press the bottom. Okay, so I have my heat press set to 60 seconds, and I have it on 400. And you want to go straight down. Do not shift, and hit start. Okay, the first press is done, and I can see the color coming through. Okay, so I've completed the second press. Now I did something, and I cannot believe that I did this. I got so excited about pressing it that I didn't put my butcher paper or my parchment paper on top of it. I pray that I did not get ink on my machine, because that would just be horrible, but I can't really check it right now until you know, it's cooled down. So do not do what I did like I did. I put everything on the inside, which I was supposed to do, but I was supposed to put my my paper on top of this design before I pressed it. So don't get too excited like I did, guys, okay? The other thing is if I were doing this over, I would have shifted it slightly up onto the mat so that I didn't have to worry that anything was like falling off the edge. So see, I have a lot of room up here. I could have moved it up and centered that design so that then I wouldn't have to have I held literally the top part of my Easy Press 2 and kind of, you know, kept the pressure on this top part so that it wouldn't be an uneven, like rocking kind of pressure. So I'm hoping that it all looks amazing. Now, whenever you pull this back, you want to do it while it's still slightly warm. So not hot, but slightly warm. So I think we're ready to go ahead and take this off. So the big reveal, so here's the moment of truth. Let's see how this did. And now I can shift it because I'm not going to press it again. Oh, it looks really, really good so far, and you can tell how much ink has come off of this. Now again, this is sublimation paper and not copy paper, and we'll do a test in a few minutes just to see what the difference would be between those two. So the colors are so, the pumpkins look so cute, guys. Check that out. Oh, I love it. I am extremely happy with this. Look how bright that was, and you can see how much ink came off of that. And there's still, you know, appears to be some left, but sometimes that happens with sublimation, guys. So don't fret about that. Do not press that again. That's not going to do well the second time. But it is beautiful, and it turned out so vibrant and so pretty. And I love that you can see the brush strokes. Like, I could have been a little more particular and made it, you know, look like perfect in between each one. But I actually like the brush strokes of the pens. And then this little thing right here, so it looks like a scarf, like a two-tone scarf. I love the way that it came out. Okay, so let's do a quick test. So I have these that we did on copy paper, and then of course we just did that with sublimation paper. So I have a little pumpkin and a little leaf, and I went ahead and colored them in and colored in some of the pumpkin. Candidly, I didn't finish the pumpkin because I didn't want to waste my markers, but I'm going to go ahead and put these here, and this is just a little piece of scrap paper. This is a sublimation blank. It's actually a little scarf for a dog, but I'm using it as my kind of test. You can see I've got multiple little tests going on here. So we're going to put these two right here. We'll press them at the same time. And this time we're using our paper underneath and our paper on top. So we're going to protect our machine, which by the way, I checked my machine and it's okay, which thank goodness, right? So I'm actually going to put two on top. I'm not as much worried about it going on the bottom. So there we go. Okay, so we've taken the heat source off. To set this to the side. And so you can see, you see a little bit of bleed right there. So thank goodness we used the paper to protect it. So the only differences between our two, when we put them side by side, this is a different material, of course. I didn't have another pillowcase, and I didn't want to, ruin one. Anyway, I didn't have another pillowcase, so the pillowcase is canvas, and then this is, a thinner polyester piece. But then the paper itself, this is copy paper, and the one we just did is sublimation paper. So we're going to allow that to cool for just a second. Okay, so here's the moment of truth. Here we go. So yeah, the material is not as nice, and so I think looks like there's like a small amount of bleeding right there. Two things to that. I didn't tape it down, which should have done, right? I didn't tape it down, but it looks like, I think that's really more part of the fabric though than it is the paper itself. So let's just move this over so we can see pumpkin to pumpkin. Okay, well, I will tell you that the pumpkin on the canvas is darker. And so then you have the leaf, and it's going to be the same as true. The leaf is darker. Now, it could be, it could be two things. It could be that it's the fabric, and so this fabric just doesn't react the same to the pens, or it could be the paper itself. I don't know, guys. I'm kind of thinking it's the paper itself. And so I think I will personally be using sublimation paper when I do these, just because, again, like we talked about before, you work so hard and you do so much, and so I want the vibrance of the pens to truly come out. And so I am saying this is copy paper, this is sublimation paper. Yes, the fabrics are slightly different, but I don't really think that the absorption of the ink would be any different because they're both of them are sublimation materials, meaning that this is like labeled, this is Cricut sublimation material or Infusible Ink material, and this is a sublimation pack of little dog kerchiefs, whatnot. Okay, so let me know what you think down in the comments. Which one are you going to use? Are you going to use sublimation paper, or are you going to use copy paper? Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I hope that you will hit that subscribe button and join me for all my future videos. By the way, if you have any questions about what we did today, I love talking to you guys down in the comments, so hop down, talk to me. Don't forget all the links to everything that we used today is down in the description below as well, and I will see you guys next time.